Discover the incredible bond. Widow's daughter heals a struggling cowboy who transforms her life. Emma leaned against the counter of the sunlit kitchen, staring out at the sprawling ranch that had been her home, her haven, and her prison all at once. The weight of expectation pressed heavily on her shoulders, a constant reminder that her mother was gone. Losing her was like losing a part of herself. The ranch, a living legacy, pulled at her heart, yet within her burned the desire to pursue her childhood dream of becoming a veterinarian. She could feel the suffocation of her choice: honor her mother's memory by running the ranch, or chase her dreams. The clash roiled inside her, a storm of emotions brewing with no clear path forward. As she wandered to the river that cut through the property, the sweltering air seemed to cling to her skin, amplifying her unease. Emma's feet moved without thought, but her mind raced. The financial pressures, the looming debts, she could practically hear them breathing down her neck. Whispers of doubts intertwined with the slogan of her mother: "This ranch is everything." With each passing day, she felt that foundation crack beneath her, leading her further into despair. What if she failed? What would that mean for everything her mother had worked for? Before she could drown in the quicksand of her thoughts, she stumbled upon Jack. He was a silhouette against the afternoon sun, a figure carved from rugged solitude, a ghost of who he once was. Tattered jeans, an old flannel shirt, and a posture that screamed defeat. For a moment she considered walking away. He represented a burden she didn't have the energy to shoulder, someone lost in their own struggles, much like her. But then their eyes met. His were marred by shadows of pain, yet glinting with the remnants of life and stories untold. An unexpected spark of vulnerability caught her off guard, forcing her to confront her own grief. Unwillingly, she felt a thread of connection, and before she truly understood it, her feet had taken a step closer. Maybe she could help him, help herself in the process. As she learned about his glorious past, the rodeos, and the tragic fall from grace that led him into the depths of addiction, each tale spun around her like a lasso. He had once embodied strength, now reduced to whispers of loss and regret. Emma found herself wanting to reclaim that spark for him. In return, Jack's resilience ignited something she had long buried. Their bond deepened as they faced the harsh realities of both the ranch and his past. The day came when bills piled high, a financial storm brewing that threatened to wash away everything. The ranch, once a sanctuary, had become a prison where dreams went to die. Emma was on the edge, torn between loyalty and the burning desire to carve her own path, with Jack's artistic energy bursting anew in her spirit. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Emma stood in the barn that evening, weighed down by an unbearable decision. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting everything in shades of gold and orange, yet she felt lost in murky twilight. Jack loomed nearby, emotions swirling between them, a flash of determination flickering in his eyes. They shared a silence that resonated, a poignant moment of understanding that perhaps they could save each other. But then the peace shattered. The roar of a truck ripped through the stillness, headlights piercing through the dusk. A former acquaintance of Jack's reviving the ghosts of his past. Emma's heart raced with anticipation and dread, uncertain if this disruption would unravel the fragile progress they had made, or push them both deeper into the shadows. Would this unwelcome visit be a curse or an opportunity for rebirth? As the vehicle skidded to a halt, Emma braced herself, knowing that everything was about to change. Emma's breath caught in her throat as the truck's engine grumbled to a halt. The familiar face that emerged sent chills down her spine. It was Ray, a ghost from Jack's past, and the last person she expected to see again. A cold sweat coated her palms, and the barn felt smaller, the shadows deeper. Ray carried with him an air of chaos, a dark reminder of the storms they were trying to outrun. Jack straightened, and in that fleeting moment, a flicker of vulnerability crossed his rugged features. Emma sensed his instinct to retreat, to slip back into that shell he had fought so hard to break free from. Would Ray's presence ignite the very demons that Jack had begun to bury? "Jack," Ray called out, voice laced with an unsettling familiarity. "Thought you could just leave us behind, huh?" The mockery was palpable, each syllable a jagged shard aimed to pierce the fragile connection Jack had begun to establish with Emma, with himself. Emma's instinct screamed to step forward, to shield Jack from the venom that Ray exuded. But uncertainty chained her feet to the ground. Jack had to confront this head on. She understood that now. It was a showdown he needed, one that could define not just his future, but hers as well. Her heart thrummed loudly in her ears as Jack confronted Ray, his stance resolute. "What do you want?" His voice was steady, but Emma could see the tightness in his jaw, a classic sign of the turmoil brewing within him. "You know."
"What I want," Ray sneered, hands stuffed in his pockets as if he were merely dropping by for a casual chat. "You owe me, Jack. You can't just walk away from this." The accusation hung in the air, thick with tension. Emma felt the weight of every unsaid word, every shared secret that Jack might have believed he had left in the past. This confrontation wasn't just about Jack, it was about their collective futures. The ranch, her mother's legacy, was entwined with Jack's fight for redemption. Emma's heart ached at the thought of Jack surrendering to his addictions, to the very chains he was trying to break. She needed to remind him of the light they had found together. Maybe she had her own battles to fight, but she wasn't about to let him slip away. With newfound determination, she stepped out from the shadows and put herself between them. "He's not who he was, Ray. You're not taking him back to that place." The fierceness in her voice surprised her, but it was what she had felt all along, an instinct to protect, to stand firm in the face of overwhelming adversity. Jack shot her a look of disbelief, uncertainty swirling in his eyes. It was a reminder of how intertwined their fates had become in such a brief span. Ray's laughter was a sneer. "Who do you think you are, playing the hero for someone who couldn't even save himself?" Emma clenched her fists, fighting the urge to back down. "And you're what, the measure of his worth? You're only pulling him back into that darkness, and he won't let you, not anymore." Jack's expression softened. This was the strength he needed. She could see it flicker to life behind the turmoil, his own determination igniting at the sight of her resilience. The silence that followed felt electric, crackling with unspoken words and challenges. Ray shifted, contempt coloring his features as he registered the defiance in both of them. "You think you can just do this, walk away from me like that?" As the weight of the moment settled, a realization dawned on Emma. Standing there in the face of this storm wasn't Jack's battle, it was hers as well. This encounter could be the defining chapter of their lives together, or the start of a devastating unraveling. With every heartbeat, her resolve deepened. She would not only strive for her dreams of being a vet, but she would insist on supporting Jack through his turmoil, challenging the very bonds holding them back. Would they confront this together, or allow the past to consume them? Just as the tension reached its peak, Jack stepped forward, a storm of renewed purpose flashing in his eyes. He turned back to Emma, determination clear on his face. I'm done with that life." But Ray smirked, eyes gleaming with predatory anticipation. "We'll see about that. You think it's easy to just walk away?" As the wind shifted, rustling through the barn's open doors, Emma's breath hung between them. They were on the cusp of something monumental, a choice that could redefine their future. Every second felt pregnant with tension as the weight of their decisions loomed heavy. Without realizing, they both stood at a crossroads, each uncertain of the path ahead. Would they take a step toward healing, or be yanked back into the darkness? As Jack faced down his past, Emma realized she too was confronted with her own daunting choice: to stake her claim on her dreams or allow the specter of their shared history to dictate her fate. The moment hung thick in the air, and as the darkness loomed, a single thought crystallized within Emma. This was just the beginning. Whatever choice lay ahead, it would require more than just bravery. It would demand everything she had. Emma's heart raced, her pulse sinking with the electric tension that filled the barn. For a second, the world around her sharpened, noise falling away, leaving just the standoff between Jack, Ray, and herself. The stakes had never felt higher. It was no longer just about Jack reclaiming his life from the clutches of addiction. It was about Emma learning to reclaim her own identity amidst the chaos. "Jack," she started, searching for the right words to tether his resolve. If only she could find a way to armor him against Ray's poison. Before she could articulate her thoughts, Jack's voice broke through. "I've made my choices, Ray. You're not part of my life anymore." The words dripped with defiance, but the fight in Jack's tone was tinged with uncertainty. Ray's smirk widened, his gaze shifting to Emma, the real target now. "And what about you, sweetheart? You think you can help a man who doesn't want to be saved? Look where it got him. You're in over your head." Emma felt the weight of his judgment, a direct strike aimed at her very essence. Doubt flickered within her. Could she actually lead Jack through this labyrinth of pain? She inhaled deeply, reminding herself of all the work she had put into her dreams, the sacrifices made to build her future and develop her skills as a vet. "Maybe he doesn't want to be saved by you," she countered sharply, "but we can't move forward without confronting the past." The sunlight streamed through the barn doors, illuminating rays that danced like hope around her. She realized how fully she had grown in these past months. Her transformation wasn't simply rooted in her aspirations, but also in the courage she had found through Jack. Protecting him was key, but she had to protect herself too. Every scar of her own spoke of resilience, and for the first time she felt it coursing deep within her, a balm against Ray's malicious energy. Ray paused, abruptly shifting his tactics as he scrutinized her. "You think you know him? You barely scratched the surface. The man you're all in for is still broken, and I'm here to remind him."
That fact. Jack shifted his weight, the tension in his body coiling tightly. Would he crumple under the weight of this confrontation? Emma hoped that her presence created a wall, an unshakable shield against doubt. "Every person has parts that are broken," Emma asserted, her voice gaining strength, "but those pieces can still fit together. Jack has so much strength, and guess what? I'm not afraid to fight for him." A flicker of surprise flashed across Jack's face, and Emma seized the moment to lay bare their connection. "You fought for your life, Jack. Now it's time for you to fight for your future, with me. Don't let Ray take that away." Shifting focus back to Ray, Emma squared her shoulders. "You might think you know Jack, but he's not defined by his past. We're building something new, something that doesn't involve you. You need to understand that." For the first time, Ray hesitated, and Emma saw an inkling of doubt in his eyes. Just a moment of realization that perhaps he was losing control. Jack's vulnerability seemed to flicker into guarded strength, igniting something within him as he reflected on Emma's words. The air between them tingled, the gravity of their choices felt almost cloying. This moment was a crucible, forging new identities from fear, ambition, and resilience. It struck Emma then. She held power over her own narrative. This wasn't solely a trial of Jack's will, but also a test of her own. Jack, she urged softly, willing him to see the strength within himself. We're not walking away from anything. We're choosing to walk forward, together. As if pulled by an unseen force, Jack took a step closer to wholeness, the shadows of his past flickering in the dim light. It was time for him to finally face his fears. But as her heart swelled with hope, Emma realized she also needed this moment for herself. A clear decision to no longer be shackled by doubt or the past. The battle within Ray began to unravel, but he wasn't finished yet. "You really think this is over?" he hissed, voice low and menacing. "You're making a mistake, both of you." With a collective breath, Emma and Jack stood together, an unspoken pact solidifying between them. But in that solemn moment, as the shadows of the barn shifted ominously, Emma understood one profound truth. Sometimes victory over the past leads to new battles of spirit. Could they withstand Ray's final blow, or would the chains of yesterday find a way to ensnare them once more? Emma tightened her grip on her dreams and on Jack, forging ahead. But as Ray's wicked smile threatened to return, the stakes had never been higher. The night was still young, and the real fight was just beginning. Jack's resolve had barely begun to solidify when Ray's jagged laughter sliced through the air like glass. Just as Emma thought they had carved out some space between them and the chaos, she felt the darkness swirling back. Jack stood beside her, visibly fighting to extinguish the doubt etched on his face. "Think you two are special, huh?" Ray sneered, his voice draping over them like a thick smoke. "You really believe that you can turn him into something he's not? I know what's lurking inside him, just waiting to drag both of you back into the dark." Emma glanced at Jack. His expression flickered, a reflection of anguish and battle. She could see his struggle mirrored in her own. Fear of failure, fear of being lost again in a world filled with chaos. "Jack's not alone," Emma shot back, the fire in her voice igniting her certainty. "And we can't control the past, but we can shape our future." At that moment, she realized these weren't just empty words. They were bricks in the path she was forging, a path that started today. Ray was not just an antagonist, he was a catalyst. His presence urged her to dig deeper into her own identity, to fortify the foundation of her existence without Jack's afflictions dragging her down. Jack's head lifted a fraction, the shadows of doubt momentarily shifting. Encouraged, Emma took a step forward. "Each choice, Jack, brings us closer to understanding who we truly are," she said softly. "I've had my own battles, my own losses, but every scar, every misstep has taught me." "They've taught you what?" Ray interjected, his demeanor shifting from menacing to mocking. "How to save a lost cause?" Emma clenched her fists at her side, every taunt from Ray cutting deeper, every word intensifying her determination. Her journey to becoming a veterinarian had been filled with hurdles. She had encountered heartbreak, betrayal, and loss, yet she had emerged each time, letting none of it define her. Ray's venom could not shatter the truth she had built. "No, Ray," she emphasized, keeping her gaze steady. I'm not saving a lost cause. I'm finding strength in what we are, a team. Jack took a breath that echoed vulnerability. She sensed the hesitation within him, yet there was a growing flame of defiance in the midst of his uncertainty. "I've lived in chaos for too long," he admitted, his voice steady now, fueled by Emma's support. "It's time I stood for something. It's time I stood for myself." Emma felt a swell of pride fill her chest. This wasn't just about Jack's recovery. It was about both of them carving out space in each other's lives, free from decay and doubts, shaping their own epic story amidst the noise outside. Ray, sensing his grasp on the narrative slipping, spat. "Fine, play your little game, but mark my words, he will fail, and when he does, you'll be the one left in ruins." "You're wrong," Emma asserted, the weight of her experience settling in her words. "What you see as ruin, we see as resilience." Jack turned to Emma, anxiety turned to resolve. He stepped closer to her, and for the first time, it felt as if they were truly uniting against the storm. But even as they stood together, Emma uncovered a reality. The tension between them and Ray was only the beginning of a much larger battle. She had wrestled with her own past, but now, set against Ray's insidious influence, she confronted not only Jack's demons, but her own insecurities about their future together. In that moment, Emma felt the tremors of impending conflict within herself. She had not only to fight for Jack, but also to confront what truly defined her own success. It struck her that the true evolution lay in both of them, and the challenges wouldn't merely be external. As the barn's shadows deepened, Emma's resolve solidified. In the echoes of Ray's threats, she recognized the real adversary, fear lingering within. She had to delve deeper into her own strength and earnestly ask herself if she was ready to forge this path, knowing the heartache it might bring. "Are you with me, Jack?" she asked, her voice steady, revealing both her vulnerability and strength. "I'll fight," he whispered, and with those words they sealed a pact, bound to each other, untouched by the chains of doubt. But as they prepared to move forward, a chilling realization settled in. The fight had only just begun, and with it came revelations neither was prepared for. What other truths lay buried in the past? And when push came to shove, what limits would they have to breach within themselves to emerge unscathed? Emma stood there, the air thick with tension, as Jack's words resonated in her mind. The magnitude of their pact weighed on her shoulders. It was a commitment not just to each other, but to the journey they were embarking upon. She felt the warmth of Jack's resolve, his willingness to fight, igniting a flame within her, one that would not flicker easily in the face of adversity. They began to walk away from the shadows of Ray, but Emma knew the true battle awaited them. Each step carried the weight of the past, her own struggles interwoven with Jack's. She felt as if they were crossing an invisible threshold, entering a new phase where the stakes were higher and the risks more profound. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't simply a caretaker or an observer. She was an active participant in her destiny, shaping the narrative of her life alongside Jack. Over the following days, Emma dove deeper into her responsibilities at the clinic, determined to channel her mounting anxiety into something productive. She immersed herself in animal care, treating every creature with the tenderness she yearned to see reflected in her own life. Each success fueled her confidence. Each creature healed solidified her conviction. Every morning brought renewed purpose, a reminder that resilience was not merely defined by overcoming certain hurdles, but by the way one stood back up after being knocked down. Yet as her professional life flourished, the shadows of doubt crept in whenever Emma thought of the looming. The reality of their uncertain future gnawed at her thoughts, with the looming sense that the true test of their growth was yet to come. As Emma stepped outside, the cool night air enveloped her like a comforting shawl, but the urgency of the ringing phone pulled her back to reality.
The world at the clinic beckoned, filled with the chaotic intertwining of life and death, an unpredictable landscape, much like the journey she and Jack had undertaken. "Hello," she answered, her voice steady, but the tension of the situation mirroring the tight knot in her stomach. The distressed voice on the other end belonged to one of her colleagues, reporting a critical case. A dog that had been struck by a car, its owner frantic and pleading for help. Emma felt her heart race as she gathered her thoughts. This was not just a call for professional expertise, but a test of her resolve, one that forced her to confront the daily reality of her vocation. "Is anyone else there?" she asked, scanning the dimly lit parking lot. The silence around her almost reflective of her internal confrontation with Jack. "I can be there in 20 minutes. As she hung up, the quiet of the night morphed into the rhythm of her racing thoughts. She was confident in her skills, yet doubt crept in. Was she truly enough? She had just opened up a chasm of vulnerability with Jack, and here was another moment demanding her focus. She wondered how she would manage to balance her emotional life with the hard realities of her profession. Driving to the clinic, memories flashed through her mind. Her first case, when she hesitated to make a difficult decision. How she had confronted those fears step by step. She had always been the one they called in tough situations, but would her fears unravel her now? When she arrived, chaos reigned. The frantic owner paced in the waiting area, tears spilling down her cheeks, while the staff bustled about, bringing in the injured dog, a golden retriever, once vibrant and now lying motionless on the stretcher. The sights and sounds conspired to wrap around Emma like a vice, squeezing every corner of her courage. "Emma, thank God you're here," her colleague exclaimed, snapping her back to the present. "We need to stabilize him quickly." As Emma stepped into the treatment room, her hands moved instinctively to perform the tasks required. Yet her mind hovered on the situation with Jack. Could she throw herself completely into saving this dog while still grappling with her feelings? Each time she isolated her feelings or hesitated, she thought of Scout, the frail barn cat who had required so much patience and care. It dawned on her, healing, whether for people or animals, never promised an easy path. With increased focus, she listened to the beeping of monitors, the harsh fragrance of antiseptic filling the air, and she embraced the urgency. The dog responded to her actions, slowly coming back to life under her hands. Every stitch she made, every ounce of care she poured into him was not just task-oriented. It was an affirmation of her own strength, a reminder that her professional identity was deeply tied to her personal journey. Moments later, a small gasp escaped the owner as the dog stirred. A flush of relief washed over Emma, filling the void of doubt that crept in as she questioned her worth. This bond they had formed over shared vulnerabilities, both Jack's and her own, mirrored the heroic act of saving this dog. With the immediate crisis averted, Emma's heart tugged her thoughts back to Jack. She had shared her vulnerability with him, but was she ready to accept his battles as well? The weight of the night pushed her to consider how interconnected their struggles truly were. As the emotional aftermath settled, she found herself staring into the eyes of the grateful owner, joy shining bright amidst tears of relief. Emma remembered the intertwining of their lives, each moment forging a stronger tether to resilience. What did it mean to truly be a partner now? What would unwavering honesty demand of her regarding both Jack and her profession? With the clinic closing up around her, Emma prepared for her next move. Unbeknownst to her, another challenge lurked in the shadows of her mind, waiting for a moment to surface. Would the next encounter deepen her understanding of who she was? Or would it further entangle her with Jack's journey, demanding an authenticity she had yet to fully grasp? As her heart pulsed with anticipation, she knew one thing. The next test would not just shape her, it would define the very fabric of her relationship with Jack. Would she step into that purity of partnership and face her truth?
The following morning brought an unexpected sense of calm, one that skated along the edges of her chaotic thoughts. The sun's rays bathed her living room, illuminating the small trinkets that cluttered her space, a reminder of each person she had nurtured and every animal she had saved. As she sipped her coffee, the bubbling warmth contrasted sharply with the urgency of her emotional turbulence. Could she remain this dual force of caregiver and partner without succumbing to the pressure? Emma was mindful as she moved through her morning routine. The lingering emotions from last night's crisis still coursed through her veins, reminding her that the unpredictable nature of her profession was mirrored by her emotional entanglement with Jack. Why did it feel so daunting to open her heart fully to someone else's struggles? As she got ready for work at the clinic, these questions weighed heavily on her. It's not just about being competent or strong, she realized. It's about choosing to be vulnerable. She had weathered storms both professionally and personally, yet the new dynamic between her and Jack felt uncharted. Arriving at the clinic, Emma sensed a different energy in the air. The usual bustle was tinged with a muted anxiety. Her supervisor approached, his brow lined with concern. "Emma, we need you to oversee a new patient today, a stray horse that was found wandering. The vet can't get here for a few hours, and we need someone with your instinct." The request jolted something deep within her. Working with large animals was a different set of challenges. She hadn't dealt with equines since her college days, but she sensed this was an opportunity to test her resolve. "Of course, I'll handle it," she replied, steeling herself against the wave of doubt that threatened to wash over her. Emma immersed herself in the logistics of preparing the stable area. With each movement, she felt empowered. Her expertise was returning. She remembered lessons from mentors, the importance of steady hands and patience, and how that patience extended beyond the animals to her own spirit. There was a primal connection between her world and the horse waiting for her, a raw energy born of shared vulnerability and the understanding that healing required trust from both sides. When the horse arrived, its frightened eyes haunted Emma. The delivery team struggled to maintain its fear-driven bucking. She approached cautiously, her breathing steady, recalling her own fears and the uncertainties she had faced. "Easy, girl," she whispered softly, letting the tension in the air dissolve. This was not merely about calming a horse. It was about bridging the gap of fear, be it for herself or Jack. Gradually, Emma built rapport with the horse, allowing her instincts to guide her. The powerful animal slowly acquiesced, picking up on Emma's calm energy like a beacon of hope. As she worked, each touch of her hand calmed not just the horse, but her own pounding heart. Here was the unequivocal truth. Healing was a dialogue, an exchange rooted in authenticity, whether it was her patient or herself. In that moment, an epiphany emerged. Jack's battles were no different from the creature before her. The strains of vulnerability and fear she had long wrestled with unraveled into clarity. What if she could extend this understanding to him? Could she offer the same gentle support she had shown the horse? As the procedure continued, the bond between them solidified, a shared commitment to healing and authenticity. Emma's heart swelled with pride as the horse submitted, its resistance dissolving. This was more than just a professional triumph. It was a personal revelation. Later that evening, as she reflected on the smooth progression with the horse, Emma felt an overwhelming urge to reach out to Jack. Their conversations had freely shared pain, yet never fully embraced potential growth together. Would she be able to confront not only her fears, but also urge him to face his? Emma found her thoughts drifting back to their last encounter. She knew a reckoning loomed ahead if they were to truly forge a partnership. The air in her apartment grew thick with anticipation. Would stepping into that next chapter bring her and Jack closer together, or would it tear open old wounds that needed attention? With resolve knitting tightly in her chest, Emma understood she could no longer tread quietly in the shadows of uncertainty. It was time for honesty, not just with herself, but with Jack as well. What would that mean for the relationship, and even more for their personal journeys? Emma's heart raced as she contemplated the impending conversation with Jack. The late evening sun cast shadows across her apartment, and she found herself standing in front of the mirror, staring at her reflection. Was she really ready to confront not just her feelings, but the complexity of Jack's struggles? The thought of tentatively reaching out gnawed at her gut. With a deep breath, she flicked off the bathroom light and made her way to the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of water as a small act of grounding. Calmness was necessary. This wasn't just a conversation about feelings. It was an acknowledgement of both their vulnerabilities, and strengthening her resolve was her only option if they were to bridge the chasm that had formed between them. Dialing Jack's number, she mentally rehearsed her words, feeling like a performer preparing for a critical debut. Each ring echoed louder than the last, amplifying her anxieties. What if he wasn't ready? What if he saw her vulnerability as a burden rather than an invitation for partnership? But that voice, the one that had carried her through stressful shifts at the clinic and the uncertainty with the horse, pushed her to persist. Silence loomed as she was met with voicemail. Deflated but not deterred, Emma set her resolve to visit Jack's place, a choice grounded in instinct and urgency. She needed this dialogue to happen face to face. The car ride felt interminable, every stoplight stretching time as she bounced between anticipation and dread. Arriving at his small cabin, she hesitated on the porch. It struck her how different their lives had become, his at the mercy of haunting memories and hers buoyed by the desire to heal. The intersection of their lives held potential, but only if they were willing to navigate those shadows together. When Jack finally opened the door, surprise washed over his face. The last traces of light filtered through the trees, and golden rays caught the remnants of apprehension in his eyes. "Emma," he said, his tone both soft and guarded. "Can we talk?" she asked, nerves trembling just beneath her calm facade. He led her inside, and the familiar sense of wood and leather enveloped her. The warmth was undeniable, yet the air crackled with unspoken words. They sat across from each other, a coffee table separating them like an unscalable barrier. Here she was, teetering on the brink of connection and uncertainty. "It's been a crazy few days, hasn't it?" Jack started, ducking his head. "It has," Emma replied, wanting to push past the polite formalities. "But that's not why I'm here." Taking a deep breath, she laid bare the thoughts that had occupied her mind since
their last encounter. "I realize I've been hesitant to share what I feel. I want to be there for you, but I can't do it if I don't let you in. I'm struggling too. I need to know that we can navigate this together, not just as colleagues, but as partners." His gaze met hers, searching for sincerity. "You don't have to fix me, you know. I'm not sure I can ever be whole after—" He trailed off, pain raw in his voice. Emma felt the weight of his words and the gravity of his heartache. "Jack, I'm not trying to fix anything. I just want us to be honest. You have your demons, yes, but so do I. What we went through with the horse today made me realize that healing isn't about going through it alone." Jack leaned back, his expression unreadable. Was she making progress or simply pushing him away with every vulnerable word? Emma's apprehensions twisted deeper, gripping her resolve and threatening to unravel her. She needed him to understand that this wasn't just about revealing pain, but about stepping toward a future where they could heal together. For the first time since arriving, a flicker of something shifted in Jack's eyes, a tiny opening toward connection. "You might actually be right," he conceded, almost sheepishly. "But what does that mean? How do we even start?" Silence hung between them, thick with uncertainty and potential, before Emma voiced what had been brewing in her mind. "We take it one step at a time. We can't save each other, but we can provide the space to be vulnerable.
We could take the risks we don't want to take alone. Jack's gaze softened, the weight of his fears teasing the corners of a smile. I guess that's a start. Emma's heart quickened. Perhaps this moment of honesty heralded a new beginning. Yet, as they ventured into discussions about shared fears, memories loomed larger than life itself, and the specter of hesitation clung between them. Could they really step beyond their individual traumas and into something new? While she anticipated Jack's response, a realization struck her. What if they didn't just emerge from their personal shadows, but instead gave life a different flavor together? As they sat, unease exchanged for a burgeoning connection, Emma couldn't shake the anticipation of what lay ahead. Had their confessions opened the door to healing, or would they unwittingly step deeper into a tumultuous path, one that would challenge everything they thought about partnership? The night deepened around them. Choice hung heavy in the air, like a trapdoor waiting to be sprung. "Where do we go from here?" Jack asked, his voice steady, the weight of his own vulnerability now playing in their conversation. With the darkness promising untold revelations, Emma took a breath, understanding the potential glimmering on the horizon. Wherever we both choose. The doorway loomed. A turning point was at hand, singing of new beginnings, but also whispered of the risks they had yet to face together. What awaited them on this perilous yet intriguing path? The conversation lingered between them like a taut string, ready to snap at the slightest tug. Emma could see the gears turning in Jack's mind, as if he were weighing each word before it slipped from his lips. The vulnerability she had offered was a risk, and now she steeled herself for his response. "Emma, I want to believe it's possible. I do," Jack said slowly, a hint of determination threading through his uncertainty. "But my past keeps pulling me back." The rawness in his voice cut through the warmth of the room, leaving a chill in the air. She leaned in, reaching out across the table, her palm hovering just inches from his. "Then let's confront it together. I'm willing to share my burdens too. I'm not perfect, but I want to try." His gaze shifted to the floor, a shadow crossing his face as if memories were playing a silent reel in his mind. "It might be too much for you," he murmured, vulnerability tightening his features. "What happens if it breaks you too?" A pulse of pain twisted in her chest. His concern underscored the magnitude of their situation. "I can't promise it'll be easy, Jack, but what I know is that confronting it alone is more unbearable than facing it with someone who understands. If we don't try, we'll never know what we could create." Jack's eyes met hers, a flicker of something, fear, hope, conflict, swirled within. Emma's heart pounded as she realized this was a crossroads, not just for him, but for both of them. "Maybe we can find a way to understand each other's scars," she suggested, her voice softer, inviting. "After all, sharing the load lightens the weight." He exhaled slowly, still weighed down by uncertainty, but seemingly closer to an answer. "It just feels like asking too much to bring someone into my darkness." Emma's resolve hardened. She would not let this moment slip. "Your darkness is not the entirety of who you are, Jack, just like my struggles don't define me. We're both still here, fighting, and that says something." Sitting there, she recognized a growing clarity. She hadn't just come to offer support. She was opening doors not only for Jack, but for herself as well. Would this bonding be the catalyst for her own healing, or would she falter amidst the fractures? Jack leaned forward, the air between them thickening with unspoken tension. "You're right, I need to let someone else in, but it's terrifying," he confessed. "Terrifying can also mean that we're bold enough to take steps towards something more meaningful," she countered, even as she felt her own heart race with the notion of stepping into the unknown. They exchanged yet another charged silence, and Emma's mind raced through possibilities, wondering how she could foster their budding connection. She envisioned shared paths into normalcy, where they weren't defined by their pain, but rather supported by it, each scar a mark of survival rather than a chain of despair. "I want to try," Jack finally whispered, "even if it scares me." "Good. We grow through the fear, not around it," she urged, relief flooding through her. As they sat with the weight of newfound commitment, something shifted. The walls around her heart loosened, a clear sign that they were striding into unfamiliar territory where both were willing to explore. But this fragile bond begged for strength. Emma had to confront her own layers of hurt and resilience, too. "Then let's make a plan," she said, her voice gaining momentum. "Maybe we can meet once a week, start talking about what we're going through, share our experiences. I want to underscore the importance of communication." Jack nodded slowly, an ember of determination igniting in his expression. "Yeah, I like that. I'm not sure how much I can bring to the table yet, but maybe talking might help." "Absolutely. Together we can turn our pasts into context for our new realities," she emphasized, encouraging him. But deep inside, doubts flickered. Was she really ready to unearth the depths of her struggles? Every layer of intimacy they expressed threatened to expose her own hidden traumas. "So, when should we start?" Jack asked, his tentative smile fleeting before the shadows returned. Emma hesitated, a wave of apprehension washing over her. "How about tomorrow?" she suggested, her heart quickening. "Tomorrow feels right," he agreed, and something palpable shifted in the atmosphere, as if new possibilities enveloped them both. Yet beneath her excitement, another feeling loomed, fear of what darkness they might stir. Their journey had just begun, but where would it truly lead? As they stood to leave, Jack's expression shifted to something akin to gratitude, and for the first time since their calamities began, Emma could sense a flicker of hope emerging from the depths that lay ahead. "Tomorrow," she echoed, the word reverberating with the promise of truths yet uncovered and emotions awaiting the light. But even in that hopeful glow, she couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow would not just be another day. It would demand everything of her. In her heart, she knew that stepping into the fray was about more than just Jack. It was a critical step in understanding herself. As they exited the cabin, a gust of wind rushed past them, hinting at storms not yet weathered. And as Emma turned to close the door, she couldn't help but wonder, were they truly ready to face the wreckage of their pasts, or were they inviting a tempest they couldn't foresee? The journey that began with tentative conversation had morphed into a pact that promised revelation, connection, and maybe, just maybe, redemption. Would they brave the storm, or would fears drag them back into the shadows? The morning light poured through the window, illuminating the living room with a bright promise. Emma took a deep breath, steeling herself for the day ahead. Today marked their first official conversation about their pasts. It was time to embrace their vulnerabilities, the real battle for both of them. Jack arrived right on time, bringing with him both an air of anticipation and a twinge of apprehension. They greeted each other with an unspoken acknowledgment of the commitment they had made. Sitting on the couch, they settled into a space filled with a mixture of tension and resolve. "Okay, so where do we start?" Jack asked, his voice steady yet colored with uncertainty. Emma recognized the heaviness of the moment. It was ripe with the potential for genuine growth. "How about we talk about what led us here? Not just the surface stuff, but the whys and how it impacts us now. For me, it's about reclaiming who I am outside of caring for others." Jack nodded, the flicker of realization crossing his face. "That makes sense. I guess I've spent so long in my head that I forgot to reach out, to see what the pain can teach me." They both took a moment, reflecting on the simultaneous nature of their journeys. Emma felt the heat of determination rising in her chest. With each obstacle they faced, she realized the importance of taking ownership of their stories and learning to understand the struggles that shaped them. As the conversation unfolded, Emma recounted her early aspirations of becoming a veterinarian, the childhood moments that sparked that dream, and how she had often buried it beneath the weight of grief and expectation. "I thought running the ranch was my only path forward, but it suffocated me. Only recently did I realize I could balance my love for the ranch with my passion for animal care." Jack listened intently, nodding along as she spoke. When it came his turn, unease washed over him. "I used to believe that strength was all about not showing any crack. A cowboy doesn't fall apart. I let myself drown in the chaos inside, thinking if I could push it down, I'd be fine. But each time I'd escape, I would hear laughter, my own laughter, echoing back. It confused me." Jack's admission resonated deeply, and their stories began to echo with each other. Emma felt the layers of shame around their journeys peel back as Jack opened up. They discussed fear, pain, and the lengths they had each gone to hide and survive. What emerged was a shimmering thread connecting their vulnerabilities. "I don't want to do this alone anymore, Emma," Jack confessed, his gaze earnest as it bore into hers. "I'm tired of pretending to be strong. I never want to go back to that dark place again." Emma's pulse quickened. "Neither do I. But it's not all about handling the darkness, Jack. It's learning to find our own light, too. Together, we can carve out a new definition of strength, one filled with hope." They shared laughter, revelations, and a newfound trust that settled between them like a warm embrace. Each word they spoke melted away the barriers that had separated them for too long. There, couched in the soft light of the morning, both Emma and Jack realized they were not just confronting their pasts, but illuminating a shared future. The sessions became a weekly ritual, a safe space to explore past scars and present fears. With each meeting, they peeled back layers of hurt intertwined with hope. Their conversations became a catalyst for learning and growth as they began to cultivate the life they envisioned together. Days turned into weeks, interspersed with shared moments that punctuated their journey. Emma's professional life flourished as well. She confidently took on more responsibilities at the clinic, treating all animals with renewed passion. Healing became an act not only for her patients, but for herself, an affirmation of her dreams. Meanwhile, Jack embraced his recovery, building routines that nurtured his well-being, surrounded by people who inspired him. He learned to challenge old habits and to draw strength from the support Emma offered. Their partnership evolved from brokenness to a palpable bond of understanding, and he commenced a journey of earning others' trust once more. One night, under a sprawling canvas of stars, they found themselves on a quiet hillside overlooking the ranch. Emma turned to Jack, who had been quiet for a moment, lost in thought. "What's on your mind?" she asked. "This place," Jack said softly. "It holds so much of my past. But looking out there, I realize it doesn't chain me anymore. It's part of my journey, yes, but it doesn't define me. Just like you've shown me, I don't have to be defined by my failures." Emma nodded, her heart swelling with pride. The transformation in Jack struck a chord deep within her. As they sat side by side, comforted by the familiarity of their newfound connection, they shared a promise unspoken. Together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead, embracing their pasts while forging a new path of resilience. Months later, as Emma tended to the clinic, her heart felt lighter than ever before. Jack had been doing well in his continued recovery, attending local meetings where he found fellowship among those who understood his struggles. That day, as she completed a particularly challenging surgery, a sense of confidence enveloped her. Emma stepped back, watching her colleagues celebrate the success. The pride coursing through her felt fully earned. She was not just a vet, she had become a beacon of hope for herself, for Jack, and for the many animals now in her care. As the sun dipped low, brightening the clinic with a warm glow, a silhouette appeared in the doorway. Emma recognized Jack before he spoke, his familiar warmth wrapping around her like an embrace. He stepped forward, pride radiating from him. "Hey, I'm proud of you," he said, his voice steady and sincere. "You make a difference, not just here, but in everything." Together, they paused to bask in this moment of recognition. Their individual transformations not only led them to a place of personal achievement, but paved the way for that same growth to flourish in each other. Emma smiled, her heart filled with gratitude for the journey they'd taken, through storms and gentle tides, and understood that this was just the beginning. They were standing on the brink of a new chapter, a testament to healing, resilience, and unbreakable bonds forged through truth, commitment, and love. The night deepened around them. The path ahead was inviting, filled with new adventures to be forged together. They were more than survivors. They were creators of their destiny, empowered by the stories they would continue to share. Now was the moment to not just embrace their individual transformations, but to celebrate the expansive horizons awaiting them both, together. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment on your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.